Being in a long-term relationship takes work. Managing your money also takes work, and bringing those two things together it can be a real challenge for couples over the course of a life that could be decades and decades along, and lots of circumstances that get rolled into all of that. Dr. Gary Chapman is the author of a seminal book for a lot of couples called The Five Love Languages, one of the most well-known models for building a healthy long-term relationship. He joins our show today to talk about the intersection of the love languages that he's been working with for a long time now, and some of the challenges that couples deal with when it comes to money in contemporary life. He joins us now from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Hello there.
Well, hello, Bruce. It's great to be with you.
Well, I read your book, I don't know when it was, but a long time ago, and I'm 24 years in with my husband. We are like, our love languages are very different, but we use the words and the concepts. First of all, take us through the five as kind of the context for our conversation here.
Okay, five basic ways to communicate love on an emotional level. Number one, words of affirmation. You look nice in that outfit. I appreciate what you did. It's just looking for things you can verbally affirm. Then acts of service, doing something for the person you know they would like for you to do. It can be cooking a meal or washing a car, but it's just doing something the other person would appreciate. There's an old saying, actions speak louder than words.
Right.
If this is their love language, actions will speak louder than words.
Sure.
Then there's gifts. It's universal to give gifts. The gift says, they were thinking about me. Look what they got for me. And then there's quality time, giving the person your undivided attention. I do not mean watching television together. Someone else has your attention. But I'm talking about giving them your attention. You don't have to be sitting and talking. You can take a walk down the road or go out to eat and talk, or you can be doing something with each other that can be quality time. And then physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. So the basic concept out of those five, each of us, male, female, young, old, children, adults, each of us has a primary love language. And if you don't receive love in that language, you won't feel loved, even though they're speaking some of the other languages.
So as couples become more familiar with these ideas, they kind of do the thinking and they communicate what their love language is, at least the primary one that drives them. How do they, what can they ask of their partner to engage with them in the way that is going to communicate the love most in the most fulfilling way possible?
Yeah. Well, the ideal is if both of them are exposed to the concept, either reading the book or going online and taking the quiz, the free quiz, 5lovelanguages.com, which will tell you what your primary language is, your secondary, and then how the others fall in line. So if both of you, for example, take the quiz and share it with each other, now you at least have information on the primary language. Now, within every language, there are dialects. So there may be, like if it's acts of service, there may be certain acts of service that they appreciate more than others. And so that needs to be shared also. But once you have the information, then it's a choice. You either choose to learn to speak it or you choose not to. And if you didn't receive their love language growing up, it'll be a learning curve because it will not come natural for you. But the good news is you can learn to speak any of these languages, even if you didn't receive them as a child.
I noticed when I was engaging on this, so maybe no surprise given that I talk about money all the time, receiving gifts is number 5. I could not care less about them, and I am terrible at giving them. I don't have any ideas. It's not even so much the money, but I am terrible at it. How do you encourage people to really listen to what their partner says and suspend your own judgment about what you feel I'm speaking for myself here, the right love language is, which is, of course, words of affirmation. I mean, like anybody who has anything other than that is insane.
Well, I think we have to trust our spouse to know themselves better than we know them, or anybody else for that matter. The idea you can read someone's mind, or the idea that what makes you feel loved will make them feel loved, is a false assumption. Because we have different languages. And so I think we have to trust our spouse. And a good question to ask is, if I wanted to show you that I really loved you, give me a couple of ways that would be meaningful to you. And the ways they give you may not all be in the same language, but chances are 2 or 3 out of the 5 will be in the same language. Because we can receive love in other languages, but if we don't speak the primary, then we're not going to be effective.
Talk a bit about the wisdom that you have gained working with these love languages and talking about money, financial conversations. First, what do you notice can be fraught in couples that an understanding of the love languages could diffuse?
Yeah. Well, as you well know, as well as anybody, people have different ideas on money and different patterns of spending money and all of that. And when you come to a close relationship like a marriage, where you're going to be spending and processing money together, it's often a source of conflict. If you don't feel loved emotionally by that person, it's much more difficult to solve conflicts. But if you are speaking each other's love language and you do feel secure in each other's love, far easier for you to discuss differences on money because you that basic need is met. You're in the same boat, and so you're on the same team. And what you want to find is a way that works for both of us. And that's true whether it's a money conflict or any other conflict.
Receiving gifts is the most probably obvious in couples where money is tight. If you've got one individual for whom receiving gifts is really, really important, but there isn't the money to pay for the things that they would want that would be a demonstration of that love. How do you square that circle?
Well, typically, if a person's primary love language is gifts, the amount of money you spend on the gift is not the issue. Unless, of course, you're a millionaire and you're buying gifts at the dollar store. You know, if they know you could pay for other things. But it can be simple things, you know. In fact, I had a guy tell me the other day, he said, my wife's language is gifts. And I was taking a walk one morning and I saw a bird feather. So I picked it up and brushed it off. I took it home to her and said, honey, when I was walking, I found this bird feather. And I want to give it to you because it reminded me that you are the wind beneath my wings. And she said, oh, that is so sweet.
Wow. I hope he played the song at the same time, too. Beautiful.
He gave her a gift and words of affirmation.
Sure. One of the sources of tension in couples is the tasks, the doing. So there's like the budgeting and the credit cards and who's sorting out insurance and who's doing the investing and all that stuff. Is there a way to think about acts of service as, listen, I don't want to do the thing, but as my act of service, I will do the thing, but I ask you to listen to that as an act of service, basically trying to get points. I'm teasing, but points where you might not otherwise earn them. Like, look at me over here. I'm doing something I hate as an act of service to you. Love me.
Yeah, well, I think all of us would like to have affirmation when we are expressing any of these languages to our spouse. In fact, sometimes if one spouse complains, that they don't get words of affirmation, the other person is thinking, what are you talking about? I do this and this and this and this, and you're complaining I don't give you words? I mean, what do you mean? If they don't understand the concept, you see, it's difficult for them to even understand why you would be upset that they're not getting words, that you're not getting words of affirmation.
How does the words of affirmation language manifest in terms of the contribution that people make to a family? So another dynamic that I see a lot is spouses in which there's an income disparity, or one spouse who's not working in a job for cash coming in, but they're running the home. How could that be a way into resolving some of the conflict, either by the person who's out there working and bringing home the paycheck that they feel appreciated, and or the person who's not bringing in the paycheck, but they are keeping that family alive? How can you utilize those words of affirmation to bridge those things?
Well, I think whatever pattern we happen to have in a relationship, and it differs with different couples because we have different experiences, we have different abilities, And consequently, there's two of us now on the team, so we can divide up the various things that need to be done in a relationship. And I think if we feel loved by each other, speaking the right love language, it's much easier to process those things. I know in my marriage, for example, we got married. My wife kept the books. She said, I'll do that. I was in graduate school and working part time, and she said, I'll keep the books. And so she did. And about 6 months later, she said, could you do this? I said, well, I could. Why? She said, it hurts my stomach.
Huh.
Because we didn't have much money and trying to figure out, how to spend it and all. I said, well, honey, I can do it. I don't mind doing it if it'd be better for you. So sometimes you have to work it out as you go along, and you may shift responsibilities as you go along. But if you have this emotional sense that they love you, again, it's easier to work out, whatever conflicts we might have on that topic.
One of the things that I would recommend, and if I could snap my fingers, I would just have all couples do this, is a regular conversation about money, not just the bills, but the bigger context for the future that you're creating together, the kind of long-term goals that are only achieved with daily, weekly, monthly effort to save for something big. Is there a way, and you tell me if this is a force fit, or if there is a way to frame those money conversations, those money dates, as quality time? What do you think? For someone whose love language is quality time, do you think that could pass?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, because you're giving each other your full attention. The topic happens to be money, but you both are fully engaged in the conversation. And that's one of the dialects of quality time. Sometimes quality time is just doing something together, like going to a baseball game together and enjoying something with each other, and sharing food and so forth. There's not a whole lot of conversation going on there, but you're giving the other person your attention. It's not just a ball game. We're here together enjoying this, or it may be a symphony for that matter. So I think the same thing is true with money. And I agree. A sit down time on a regular basis to talk about money, where we are in the journey, how are we doing? What are our visions? As you said, all those things absolutely will help any relationship where couples are as a team.
Some of our listeners will hear love languages. Oh my God, I've never done that before. There's a quiz. Fantastic. I'll do it. And others will be like, I can think of nothing more horrendous in my life. I'm not interested. I'm not doing that. What advice would you have for those folks? And they're probably the spouse of our listener, because the listener's already listening to a money show, to have them engage in this. Or do you not even worry about engaging them and just promise them a back rub if they spend time to do the quiz, and because your hypothesis is physical touch?
Well, you're right. There are people who will say, I don't want to read a book on love. I don't want to take a quiz on love. Yeah, there are people like that. But I would say that the person who understands that we all have a basic need to feel loved emotionally by the people we're close to, if you take it seriously and you figure out their love language, you focus on speaking their love language, whether they want to talk about it or whether they don't, because love tends to stimulate love. And if they're beginning to feel love in a language that's meaningful to them, then there's a place down the road, a month or two down the road, to say, honey, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much love do you feel coming from me? And they give you a number. And you say, well, if it's less than 10, you say, what could I do this week that might be helpful to you in communicating my love? And they tell you something. And it may not be their primary love language that particular week. It's something else that might be better that week. But the fact you do that about every 3 weeks, I can almost guarantee you they're going to say, oh, okay. Now, 0 to 10, how much love you feel coming from me? Now, so you get a chance to say, they ask you what would they do. You're teaching them how to communicate your love language. They don't even know the concept.
Amazing. Is there a Google Translate app for the 5 love languages yet? I mean, because you don't have to learn Spanish anymore. You just, put it into Google Translate. Surely that's to come. Yes?
I don't think so. Now we do have it's called a love nudge app that kind of keeps the two of you in touch with each other, discussing the love language. So that can be helpful.
AKA, if I bought my husband a present recently. Gary, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. Enjoyed being with you.
Dr. Gary Chapman, the author of The Love Languages, the 5 love languages. He was here to talk about the intersection of the work that he has devoted his life to and how that can manifest in the financial realm for couples.